Hello, angels. How are you? I hope everyone's doing well, and I hope you've had a good day today. If you haven't, I hope this helps. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much for giving me a chance. I appreciate it. If you like what you see, please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment. I love the connection it brings me with all of you. And if you've been here before, thank you so much for returning. You guys know how much your support means to me. You're my angels, and I'm your Auntie Angel. And I want to help you get some sleep tonight, okay? So we're going to do a few relaxation techniques, and then I'm going to read another Celtic tale. And I did get this book on Amazon, so I also know if you're here in Toronto, I've mentioned this store before, Curiosa. It's downtown Toronto. They also have a website, and they also do mail shipping, like they'll ship in the mail. They're awesome, and they have the most beautiful book collection. They have the collection of Jane Austen and the Bronte sisters and Edgar Allan Poe, and they have these tales, Celtic tales, Norway tales, Russian tales. There's a lot, so I highly recommend, if you can, to check them out or try to get this for yourself if you want. So let's get you settled in, shall we? First of all, get comfortable. Whether you're on a couch or a bed or a chair, cushions on the floor, whatever, a hammock, whatever, a swinging chair. Oh, if you're lucky enough to have a swinging chair. So I want you to be comfy. I want you to have a nice pillow. Make sure that your neck is supported. Put a cushion behind it, roll up a towel, whatever. That's very important, guys, to support your neck. It does a lot of work during the day for us, and we need to take care of it. So once you have that, make sure the lighting is the way you want it. I'm going to use my electric lights tonight, my battery operated, because what does Auntie Angel always say? If you're relaxing or sleeping, no lit candles. Absolutely not. They can be quite dangerous. But these are great, okay? And people may want a night light, you might want a bright light. I don't know. Do what you do, okay? This is for you. Now, get a cover if you need it. Get yourself nice and comfy. Feel it against your back, your side, whatever you want. And let's see what story we'll be reading tonight. Let's see. Some of these are actually repeats of the other book, so it is hard. And I don't want to find another one that's violent. We've had that happen before, where I've had to change the ending because it was just ridiculous. But this one, now, if you are new here, the reason that I pick books like this is they only have one illustration per book, per story, sorry. And that way I don't have to keep showing you. And if you're trying to drift off, close your eyes. You know, and you can just listen to me drone on and read and hopefully lull you into a nice state of relaxation or sleep, okay? So the last thing we do before we start reading is some deep breathing. And the reason I always do this, my OG subscribers know, it's a way of routining your brain. If your brain gets used to, okay, I'm taking 3 deep breaths where I hold and I let them out, this is my signal to my brain, it's time to relax. It helps me, okay? I'm not a doctor, a counselor. This is just what I've learned, okay? And if it can help you, I love that, okay? That's all I want. So we're gonna breathe in for a count of 4. We're gonna hold gently for a count of 4. And then we're going to breathe out for a count of 4. If you can. If you can't, don't worry about it. Do what you can, okay? That's all we all can do, okay? Ready? Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. Good, you guys did great. And you can do that as many times as you want, okay? So tonight's story is the Basin of Gold and the Diamond Lance. Brittany, okay? Now I'm just gonna open this drape a little bit so I can see a bit better, okay? Once upon a time, near the town of Vannes, there lived an orphan boy named Pennock. Brittany was in hard times, for the city of Nantes was besieged by the French, and the French soldiers had so devastated the surrounding country that there was nothing left but shrubs for the goats to nibble on. The people were starving, and the soldiers of Brittany, who had not died of wounds, were dying of hunger. But Pennock was a happy and resourceful lad. When he was hungry, he asked the farm women of the countryside for their broken bread. When he was thirsty, he drank at the springs. And when he was sleepy, he sought out a haystack that he could settle himself in under the shade. One day, Pennock, that's how we say his name, Pennock came to a farmhouse built on the edge of a forest. And as he was well nigh famished, he went to the door and asked for a crust of bread. The farmer's wife was scraping out the porridge pot with a flint, and she gave Pennock the pot to finish. He sat down on the doorstep and, putting the saucepan between his knees, began to scrape away at it with a will. "Oh, this oatmeal is fit for the king," he exclaimed between his ravenous mouthfuls. The farmer's wife was delighted at the praise. "You poor little boy," she said. "There's not much left, but I will give you some homemade bread." She brought out what she had left of a small, fresh loaf. It had come just out of the oven that morning, when he bit into it like a wolf, declaring that it must have been kneaded by the baker of the Lord Bishop of Vannes. The peasant woman, bursting with pride to hear her bread so applauded, said it was much better with homemade butter. And she bought Pennock a pot of butter freshly churned. Pennock spread it thickly on his bread, declaring it there was no better butter in the land of Brittany. And the dame was so delighted that she gave him a bit of last Sunday's bacon. The boy swallowed it as if it were spring water, for it had been many a long day since he had been so bounteously fed. While Pennock was enjoying himself thus, a knight came riding by and asked the farm wife the way to the castle of Kirglis. "Blessing on us! Can it be that you are going there?" asked the woman in astonishment. "Yes," replied the knight, "and for that purpose I have come from a country so far away that I have been traveling day and night for many moons." "And what do you seek at Kirglis?" the dame inquired. "I am seeking the golden basin and the diamond lance," said the stranger. "Ooh, are they very valuable?" said Pennock, who'd been listening with both ears. "They are well worth more than the king's crowns in all the world," replied the knight. "For not only does the golden basin give you all the food you may desire, but if you drink from it, you will be cured of any sickness. And as for the diamond lance, it will destroy anything it strikes." "And who has the basin of gold and the diamond lance?" asked Pennock. "They belong to a wizard named Rogier," interrupted the farm wife, who had heard of this wizard before. "He is a giant, and he lives at the castle of Kirglis. You often see him riding near the edge of the forest. He rides a black mare who is followed by her foal. No one dares attack the wizard because he carries the magic lance with him." "Yes, I am told he does not bear it in the castle," said the knight. "Rogier locks his lance and his basin in the dark, deep within the ground, which no key can open. I plan to attack the wizard and win his magic treasures." "You will never succeed, good sir knight," said the farm wife. "More than 100 noblemen have tried, and not one has ever returned." "I know that full well, worthy dame," said the knight, "but I have had instructions from the hermit of Polivat." What did the the hermit tell you?" asked Paranik. "He warned me that I must pass through a wood where magic spells await me, and where I could lose my way," the knight said. "If I succeed in passing through the wood, I shall meet an elf, knight armed with a fiery dart that turns all it touches to ashes. The elf is guarding an apple tree from which I must pick an apple." "And after that?" asked Paranik. "I must find the flower that laughs," said the knight. "It is guarded by a lion whose mane is formed of vipers, but I must pluck the flower, and then I shall have to cross the lake to 12 dragons and fight the 6-eyed man. He is armed with an iron ball, which always hits his mark and then returns to his master." "Is that all?" said Paranik. "No," said the knight, "for finally I must go through the Valley of Delights, where I shall see everything that can tempt and hold me back. When I pass through the valley, I shall come to a river with a single ford. There I shall find a lady draped in black. I must carry her across the river, and she will tell me what I must do next to gain my quest." Now the farm wife tried to persuade the knight not to undertake this venture. She felt assured that he could not succeed. "This is not a matter that a woman can judge," announced the strange knight haughtily. And after the entrance to the forest has been pointed out to him, he spurred on his horse and disappeared through the trees. The woman sighed, declaring that there would soon be another soul before the throne of judgment tonight. Paranik was about to go on his way when the farmer arrived from the fields. He was in need of a cowherd, and he had no sooner seen Paranik than he had decided to hire him. Paranik was delighted to enter the farmer's service because of the good food he knew the farmer's wife would give him. So out to the field on the edge of the forest he went, to watch the cows and to bring them home at sunset. One day, shortly after this, he was running to and fro among the cows. Paranik heard the sound of horses' hooves, and looking toward the forest, he saw the giant Rogier riding his black mare, followed by her foal. On a cord around the giant's neck hung the golden basin, and in his hand he bore the diamond lance. Paranik, frightened, hid behind a bush until the giant had passed by and disappeared amongst the trees. Several times after this, the wizard Rogier rode past Paranik, until at length the boy grew quite used to seeing him and no longer ran to hide. Instead, Paranik fell to thinking how much he himself would like to follow the adventure which the knight had told him of, and what a glorious thing it would be to get possession of that golden basin and the diamond lance. One afternoon, when Paranik was alone in the meadow, watching the cattle, he saw a man with a flowing beard standing at the edge of the forest. Paranik wondered whether he was a stranger, like the knight. Approaching the bearded figure, he asked him if he were looking for the road to the castle of Kirglis. "No, I am not looking for it," answered the stranger. "I already know it." "You have been to Kirglis, and the giant did not kill you?" exclaimed Paranik. "Rogier has nothing to fear from me," the white-bearded man replied. "I am the sorcerer Bryak, Rogier's eldest brother. When I wish to see him, I come here, as I cannot go through the enchanted wood without being lost in spite of my magic power. I call a black colt to show me the way." As he spoke, he stooped over and drew 3 circles in the dust, muttering the magic words, and then he cried aloud, "Foal, free of foot, foal, free of tongue, foal, here I am. Come to me, O come, free of foot and tongue, foal, here wait I." The little horse appeared at once. Bryak put a bridle on him, swung up on his back, and disappeared into the forest. Paranik said nothing of this to anyone, for now he understood that at first, to get to the castle of Kirglis, he must ride the colt who knew the way. The boy did not know how to draw magic circles or how to say the magic words, but he did remember the verse to call the colt, and he thought long and hard about the task that lay before him. to gather the apple, pluck the flower that laughs, cross the lake of dragons, escape the six-eyed man, and pass through the valley of delights. So Paranek made a bridle of flax, a snare to catch snipe, which he dipped in holy water, and a linen bag that he filled with glue and lark's feathers. Then he took his rosary, a wooden whistle, and a bit of bread rubbed with rancid bacon. With these things, Paranek was ready to begin the adventure. The next morning, he took the bread that the farmer's wife had given him, crumbled it along the path that giant Roger would be sure to follow. In short time, Roger appeared out of the woods and crossed the meadow just as he'd done before. But this time the colt, smelling the bread, sniffed the ground and stopped to eat the crumbs, and thus was soon left alone as the giant on horseback passed quickly through. Then Paranek sang in his clear voice, "Foal, free of foot, foal, free of tongue, foal, here I am. Come to me, O come, free of foot and tongue, foal, here wait I." The foal stopped, turned around, and quickly went to Paranek, who gently bridled him. The lad then gently leaped upon his back and gave the colt his bread, for he was sure that the colt knew his way to Kirglas. And indeed, without the slightest hesitation, the colt took one of the widest paths into the forest and turned quickly into the gloomy depths. The ride was terrible to Paranek, and he trembled with fear, for the forest was enchanted, and the spells had been cast to terrify him. The trees appeared to be in flames, or bloomed appallingly like specters from some nether world. The streams became enraged torrents. Paranek pulled his cap down over his eyes so he could not see what dreaded shapes awaited. At last they came out of the forest to a place where the spells had ended. Paranek now dared to look in front of him. It was a desolate spot, and here and there were skeletons of nobles that had come to seek the castle of Kirglas. Paranek, shuddering, passed quickly onward, and came at length to a meadow, shaded by a mighty apple tree that groaned beneath its load. Near the tree stood an elf, and in his hand was a fiery dart that turned all it touched to ash. When the elf saw Paranek, he uttered a loud cry and instantly raised the dart. But Paranek, without appearing at all to be surprised, took his cap in his hand and said politely, "Do not bother with me, little prince. I am going through the meadow only to reach Kirglas." "And who are you?" demanded the elf, lowering his weapon. "I am Paranek," answered the boy. "I know nothing of your kind." "Well, I pray to not let me waste my time. I have the wizard's colt, and I must take it to Kirglas." The elf, seeing that indeed he did have the colt, was about to pass when he noticed the snare that Paranek was carrying. "And what's that for?" he asked. "Oh, this is just to catch some birds," said Paranek. "Nothing that flies can escape its meshes." "I should like to be assured of that," said the elf. "My apple tree is plundered by the blackbirds. Get your snare ready, and if you catch a blackbird, I will agree to let you pass." Paranek accepted the proposal. He tied the colt to a branch and then went to the trunk of the tree. He fixed one end of the snare to it and asked the elf to hold the other end while he prepared the pegs. The elf did so, and then Paranek deftly tied the slip knot, and thrice he tied it, and the elf found himself captured in the snare. The elf uttered a howl of rage and fought to free himself, but the cord, which had been dipped in holy water, held him tightly. Paranek picked an apple from the tree, mounted the colt, and rode off while the elf raged inside the snare. Paranek soon left that behind him, and he came to a low glade where the shade and plates of every delicious fragrance. In the midst of all of this was the laughing flower, but a lion was guarding the flower. He had a mane of vipers, and his growl was the rumbling of thunder. Paranek took off his cap to the lion. wished him a good luck, and said if he knew the right road to Kirglis. "And what business have you at Kirglis?" asked the lion, fire flashing from his eyes. "I am returning the wizard's colt. Do you not see it?" Paranak asked. "Well, yes," the lion did see it. "But before I let you pass, reveal the contents of your bag." He approached Paranak and sniffing the sack which held the feathers and the glue. "I'd be glad to," said the boy, "but beware, for what is in it might fly out." "Birds?" "Okay, open it a little then and let me look," said the lion, for it was quite curious. And that was just what Paranak did, and it's what he wanted too. As he held the bag half open, the lion plunged in his head. Of course, the feathers and the glue stuck to him. Paranak quickly pulled the string and fastened it tightly around the lion's neck. As he rushed toward the laughing flower, he plucked it and rode off as swiftly as the colt could carry him. Riding that way, it did not long take him to reach the Lake of the 12 Dragons. Across this, the lad and the colt had to swim. Hardly had they touched the water than the dragons came out to devour them. This time, Paranak did not trouble to take off his cap. He began at once to throw the beads of his rosary to the dragons, who snapped at them as if they were cherries. As each dragon swallowed a bead, he rolled over onto his back and died. Thus, Paranak and the colt rode to safety on the other side. But Paranak had yet to enter the valley watched over by the six-eyed man, and before long he beheld this sinister figure in the entrance of the valley. He was chained to a rock by one foot, and he had in his hand the iron ball, which always hit when it was thrown and returned to its master. His 6 eyes each took turns watching while the other slept, so it was absolutely impossible to pass into the valley without the man seeing. And at this moment, all 6 eyes were open. Paranak knew that if the 6-eyed man saw him, he will hurl the iron ball and it would crush him. So he dodged among the woods, and in this way he managed to get quite close to the man, who had just sat down and had closed 2 of his eyes. Encouraged by this, Paranak began to sing a lullaby in the soft musical voice that had been his gift. Slowly, the man shut his 3rd and 4th eye. Paranak sang on, and finally the 5th eye closed. The lad then began to chant the Vespers, and before he could finish, the 6-eyed man was fast asleep, as were all 6 eyes. He took the colt by its bridle and led him over to the grass-grown road. He passed the 6-eyed man without a sound and entered at length the Valley of Delights. The valley resembled a lush garden with blossoms, fruit trees, and sparkling fountains. The fountains had wine instead of water. The flowers sang, and the trees and branches offered their bountiful harvest. Paranak saw tables fit for a king. He smelled the delicious odor of fresh cakes. Servants waited for his command. Beautiful maidens danced upon the flower-spangled lawns. They called him by name and invited him to join. Paranak had all but alighted from the colt, and at once all would have been over for him, when suddenly he remembered the golden basin and the diamond lance. He quickly pulled on his woolen whistle and began to pipe upon it so that he could not hear the voice of the maidens. He ate his bread and rancid bacon, so he no longer smelled the enticing food from the table. He fixed his eyes on the colt's ears so that he could not see any of the lovely sights before him. In this way he proceeded through the valley without any mishap, and at last, in the distance, the castle of Kirglis. But he was cut off from it from the river with one ford. The colt knew the ford well, and going directly to it, he strode into the water. But Paranak looked before him to find the lady, who he was to take to the castle. She was seated on a rock. She was dressed in black satin, and her face was as dark as the shadows of night. He pulled in the colt. Taking off his cap, he bowed to the lady. "I've been waiting for you," she said. "Will you tell me what to do next?" Paranak asked. "Yes," said the lady, "if you take me across the river." Paranak helped her mount behind him, and they continued the river. "Listen," said the lady. The apple tree which was guarded by the elf is a magic tree. If you can persuade the giant Roger to eat the apple which you have brought, you may win the golden basin and the diamond lance. I shall try, said Paranek. And if I succeed, how can I obtain the basin and the lance? Are they not hidden in a dark underground chamber that no key can open? The flower that laughs, she said, opens every door and lights the darkest places. Talking thus, they reached the farthest bank. There Paranek parted with the lady, dismounting from the colt and walking to the castle. Before the entrance gate sat a giant, smoking a pipe of pure gold. When he saw Paranek with the foal, but all the magic powers, that is my colt that young scapegrace is riding. Yes, it is greatest of all magicians, said Paranek, bowing. And how did you lay your hands on it? I repeated what I learned from the sorcerer Bryak, your brother, returned Paranek. Full free of foot, full free of tongue, full here I am. Come to me, O come, free of foot and tongue, full here wait I. What do you want? Demanded the giant. I have brought you a rare gift from your brother Bryak, Paranek said. This magic apple which will make glad your heart. So be it then, said the giant. Give me the apple. Paranek obeyed, and Roger took the apple, but no sooner had he bitten into it than he turned suddenly in a dwarf so small that he did not reach the top of Paranek's shoe. Leaving him raging and running in circles, the lad entered the castle holding the laughing flower. He passed through 50 rooms and one, and came at last to a silver door. The door was locked with a ponderous lock, but there was no place to put the key. But it yielded to the laughing flower and swung open. Paranek, still holding the flower, entered, and he beheld the golden basin and the diamond lance. Hardly had he seized them than the earth began to shake. Thunder rolled and lightning flared. Suddenly the castle vanished, and Paranek found himself once more in the field among the cows. But in his hands were the golden basin and the diamond lance. Carrying these treasures, Paranek set out at once for the court of the king of Brittany. When he came to the besieged city of Nantes, a herald was proclaiming that the king would adopt as his heir the man who would deliver the city from the French. When Paranek heard this, he said, Read your proclamation no more, and take me to the king, for I am who he seeks. When Paranek came before the king, he showed him the golden basin and the diamond lance. The king was delighted and promised to make Paranek his heir if he could free Nantes from the besieged. And the king fulfilled his word. For the diamond lance, Paranek quickly swept Brittany of all its weapons, and the golden basin had restored all of the wounded Breton soldiers. Paranek became rich and had many children, to each of whom he gave a kingdom when he inherited the throne. But some say that the wizard Roger succeeded in winning back the golden basin and the diamond lance, and that no one now can ever find them, no matter how hard they seek. Okay, my lovelies, that's the end of tonight's story, and it's time for you to sleep. So close your eyes. Enter the realm of sleep. Choose the dream you want to dream, the most beautiful, sweetest of dreams, and know that I love you, I value you, I honor you. I'm so very glad that you were born. Good night.